Welcome to another album rankings on my Pop Dissected podcast. Today we're going to be looking at Rihanna's music. Now I don't think it's beyond anyone, I have my artist I gravitate towards and primarily listen to. So while I am familiar with Rihanna's big hits and know a few songs, I don't know her discography in and out. Similar to my ranking on Fifth Harmony, this video will be coming from a first listen on every album. I'm not going in with any preconceived notions and I'm simply going to listen to these albums front to back. As with every album ranking, this is not really a worst to best type of list, as in one album supersedes everything and one is just bad. That said, I don't plan to be soft about any critiques I have on the music. I'm merely looking at the lyricism, production, style, and will note what I think works and what doesn't, all of which will shape my opinion. Sales, notoriety, or impact will not be considered by any means or contribute to my ranking. As we continue, let me know what artists you would like to see ranked next and how you would rank Rihanna's 8 albums. Because we'll be looking at all of them. Music of the Sun, A Girl Like Me, Good Girl Gone Bad, Rated R, Loud, Talk That Talk, Unapologetic, and Anti. However, since Rihanna has 8 entire albums, I'll only be looking at the first 4 in my ranking. The second part will cover the next 4. So, coming in at my 8th position, we have Music of the Sun, which is Rihanna's debut album. Music of the Sun is a pretty solid effort. For a debut album, it holds a lot of consistency throughout its length. While I believe that showcases what genre and vocal strengths Rihanna can play too, it's rather limited. I noticed a handful of these tracks, though exploring different areas of the primary Caribbean influence, really bled into each other. Here I Go Again, The Last Time, You Don't Love Me, and If It's Lovin' That You Want, all really don't sound too differentiated from each other. However, the latter offered some interesting production influences that gave it an edge. Standouts for me were Rush, which I felt benefited from its electronic influence and had a bit of a saucy edge to it. Let Me, which gave the otherwise mellowed album a nice change of energy and offered a danceable track. The title track and That La 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 also give more sonic diversity and tempo change. The rest of the tracks, Ponder Replay, Willing to Wait, and There's a Thug in My Life, more or less bleed into the first set of tracks I mentioned, not standing out to me in any way, but are pretty standard, so to speak. We of course close with a ballad-esque track, Now I Know, which doesn't necessarily feel out of place, but its inclusion is predictable. Overall, Music of the Sun is a solid body of work. I don't think the sameness of most of the tracks is a bad thing, it just helps the album feel grounded without taking too many daring risks. It wasn't a slog to get through, but the more danceable tracks did help me stay engaged with this album. I don't have a favorable or negative opinion on it. It's romantic, songs about nothing really too interesting, and overall had a pretty good groove throughout. It's probably a 5 out of 10 for me. Though having a home genre, if there was a way to diversify tracks fitting into said genre, that probably would have benefited this record. For my 7th position, we have A Girl Like Me, and it's where we really get to see some experimental work that still keeps the seeds of Music of the Sun. I'd say this is a pretty solid follow-up, but overall, I think Rihanna is still finding what she's skilled at most with her music. SOS is a wonderful way to open this album. It effectively expands upon groundwork laid in tracks from her debut, such as Rush and Let Me, however, more suitably. Kisses Don't Lie is a standout without a single doubt. It brings forward those reggae and Caribbean influences, but it holds more energy to it. It's groovy and very sexy. Other standouts would be Unfaithful, wonderful energetic balladry. Selfish Girl really mixes reggae with contemporary elements very well, and despite its cliched lyrics, I think it's a great track. A Girl Like Me is very slick, and while I think it's good, it doesn't really feel like anything to write home about. Dem Haters is also good. It's almost like a serenade, and I think has the best production out of all the songs on the album. The only other track I can really be enthused about is We Ride. It's very 2000s pop, and though it offers good energy after the ballad preceding it, it's generic. Final Goodbye, P.S. I'm Still Not Over You, and A Million Miles Away are all pretty songs that deliver good vocals with varied emotional strengths, but they don't stand out in any kind of way. I noted they all felt like movie soundtracks. Final Goodbye, however, does have the strongest lyricism out of all 3. Crazy Little Thing Called Love falls into the trap of sounding like it belongs in a movie. It's not special. This brings us to the 2 tracks I did not care for. which were Break It Off and the If It's Lovin' You Want remix. Break It Off attempts to cram reggae and EDM together to create this mess of a song. Selfish Girl did it much more suitably. Break It Off's feature with Sean Paul is annoying to listen to. I don't think it's really a good song. The remix of If It's Lovin' You Want is just not worth mentioning. I do like the new production approach, but it doesn't offer anything substantial to the song except worse in its quality. Overall, A Girl Like Me has a lot more of an even pace and a variety of musical approaches. As I stated, I think Rihanna is still trying to find her sound at this point, so a lot of these songs, the bulk of them, just appear very generic and uninspired to me. The tracks that hit hard, and I can already begin to see solid standouts that she's going to improve upon with later albums. I think the album still firmly roots itself in its predecessor, which is good when you want to transition gradually with your sound. Lyrically, we're given a variety of situations, and though it's more personal to Rihanna, these songs are mainly written by other people, and it's very evident. I think that adds a generic approach to some of these tracks. With that, I think it is still a worthy follow-up to Music of the Sun that begins to expand creative intentions, but Rihanna was likely still finding what works best for her. So this album gets a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of sameness on this album, but like I said, the standouts do elevate it. Holding the 6th position for me is Rated R, which for me was an album that I initially believed would have more triumph and oomph, given the circumstances in which it was made. However, this album really lacked for me, and I'd like to clarify, in no way are my critiques related to what Rihanna personally went through. This was just not the album I expected after knowing what it was inspired by. Though this album is wanting to be geared towards a darker image and sound, I felt only a handful of tracks really committed to that idea. It's half-baked. Rihanna has more lyrical input this time around, and that is one of the strongest factors about this album. It's deeply personal. Even if a few tracks aren't these heavy hitters story-wise, we still see an array of emotions that I feel are suitable given the context of this album. My standouts on this album are pretty sparse, so we have Stupid in Love, which I only think held strengths in its storytelling, Rockstar 101, which is very grunge, and plays into that darkness the opening track introduces. Russian Roulette is also great. I think it's a bit more effective than Stupid in Love. Though I'm not a fan of the production, the vocals and macabre nature of the song really help it feel at home on the album. We also have Cold Case Love and The Last Song, both strong in their beautiful, tragic nature. The last song is a nice juxtaposition from the heaviness we see at the start of the album. So though it's tonally different, I think it still works. Then we have the songs that just don't do it for me, or I didn't feel had a necessary inclusion on the record. There's Photographs with the bizarre inclusion of will.i.am. It doesn't fit on the album, and I'll leave it at that. Te Amo, while a great song, is out of place here. It would have been more well-suited for a Music of the Sun or A Girl Like Me. Its bright nature is just very odd for an album like Rated R. We have a few songs I felt were fine all around. Firebomb and Rude Boy. Gangster for Life was great with its haunting, dark nature, though it's a song about nothing, in my opinion. Madhouse, Wait Your Turn, and Hard are the only songs I really feel committed to this dark attitude. Madhouse featuring gritty production, and Hard offering a new, cool factor direction, but still lacking. Rated R was not as I expected, and maybe I have a different idea of what dark means. We have moments that briefly lift the curtain to be a scary journey, but we fall back into moments of odd inclusions and songs that are solid, but seem like they could have been on Girl Gone Bad. The ballads and more emotional tracks offer the most material in comparison to everything else, and I think that reveals the dark nature, which perhaps was intended, since an album can be dark without being graphic or intense or brash. That said, Madhouse sets the stage for an album that doesn't follow suit, and hardly revisits the idea. Overall, Rated R only succeeds for me with its storytelling and more emotionally driven tracks. 6 out of 10. And in my 5th position and the last album we'll talk about in this video is Talk That Talk, which really seems more of a follow-up to Loud in a lot of ways. Now I don't have anything negative to really input or many critiques to offer up. However, I am on the fence about this album as a whole. I think it's good front to back. However, I can't decide if it's just reductive following the material we got on Loud, or if it's just more good pop songs that do what they're supposed to do. A few songs like Cockiness and Birthday Cake I think would have fit better on Loud, as that album was pretty sensual, but I guess they also find home on Talk That Talk. We Found Love and Where Have You Been are really good. I think the electronic production is a bit whiny at parts in both songs, but not enough to make them unlistenable. Rock Me Out, Farewell, Red Lipstick, and Fool in Love are also very good songs. Everything else, I don't have much to say because they fall pretty even for me. They're danceable, fun, energetic songs that don't really offer anything groundbreaking or anything that's bad. I think in isolation, this is a solid effort, but following up Loud, this album just seems to be more so a continuation of that sound and energy. It's the most samey album we have because it doesn't do anything notably different from Loud. With that, solely just because it's well made, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Points being taken off since it doesn't really explore any new territory for me, and it became a bit tiring to get through, just because of how familiar the whole record sounds. So with that, we have Music of the Sun coming in at 8th, A Girl Like Me at 7th, Rated R at 6th, and Talk That Talk at 5th. Do you agree with these rankings so far, and how do you think the other remaining 4 albums will be ranked? Let me know what artist discography you'd like to see next, and I look forward to chatting with y'all in the comments. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to get more future content on all your favorite pop stars. I'd also like to quickly shout out my channel members, Daniel Barron, Skyhawker, Steven, David Vaz Mediano, and Carl Dillinson. If you'd like to help decide future video topics, get exclusive chat and name badges, and receive shoutouts, then I'd love to have you as a channel member. Thank you for listening.